What's very interesting and attractive about Yorgos as a filmmaker is he's an incredibly distinctive style. And certainly the films he's made in the past, you can look at them and you know it's a Yorgos Lanthimos film.
Dogtooth was about family, Alps was about death and loss, and then we said, okay, maybe it would be interesting to do something about love.
Really, it is a love story, but a completely original love story. It's something that only Yorgos and Efthymis could have come up with.
What is the world of the lobster? Wow, that's a big question.
So in the universe that Yorgos has created, people live very happily as couples, but they have to live as a couple. As soon as you are dumped by your partner or your relationship ends for some reason, you get sent to a hotel where you have 45 days to find a new mate.
And if you don't, then you get turned into an animal of your choice.
And that's what happens to me. I get turned into a pony.
Reading the script was like, wow, okay, I'm gonna go do that in Ireland, all right.
A hotel that represents great opportunity and also the most acute fear that each character in this film feels, which is the fear of being turned into an animal. But at least you get to choose what animal you're turned into.
Now, have you thought of what animal you'd like to be if you end up alone?
Yes, a lobster.
I must congratulate you. The first thing most people think of is a dog, which is why the world is full of dogs. A lobster is an excellent choice.
Yorgos works very closely with his co-writer Efthymis. I mean, when they came to us with the idea, it was pretty fully formed. I mean, he kind of had a pretty clear sense of the narrative and the structure of the piece. He thought about it quite a bit.
The idea for this film came from discussions about, how people feel that they need to always be in a relationship, how other people see these people that can't make it, and you're considered a failure if you can't be with someone. The lengths to which people go to in order to be with someone, the fear, and all those kind of things that, follow us trying to mate in a way.
I can't remember really how it all started with the lobster, but I think that the main need was to write something about love. I mean, everything has to do with observing friends or strangers and then thinking about how they live and how they react to different situations and how it is connected to companionship or solitude.
He was thinking his wife didn't love him at all anymore. He didn't burst into tears, and he didn't think that the first thing most people do when they realize someone doesn't love them anymore is cry.
For Yorgos, I think the thing that's interesting, is everything's always about the human condition with him. It's always about how things are difficult or easy for us as people, and this is really an allegory for what goes on in everyday life. But it's effectively a slightly futuristic, near-future world where society doesn't tolerate single people.
I'm afraid you have to decide right now if you want to be registered as a homosexual or a heterosexual.
I think I should be registered as a heterosexual.
When I first read the script, I thought it was mad. I still do. I thought it was just... But it was amazing because what Efthymis and Yorgos do and what they've done with this and what they did with Dogtooth and with Alps is they really, they create a very, very complete world that operates under a very specific set of rules. And those rules, for me, are beyond the reproach of the audience in that it's very, very complete. In the scene we did in checking into the hotel, there was a sheet of paper that the woman at the front desk, while she was checking us in, had in front of her. And I don't think Yorgos is big on doing inserts, and I think his films are all the better for it. So I don't think this sheet of paper will ever be seen. But it was the rules of the hotel. And it was pretty astonishing to read it because it all made a very kind of brutal and absurd sense.
The film looks quite normal in a certain way. And that's intentional, I guess, because we want to introduce this very different world with different rules, but that actually feels very similar to ours.
Now, the fact that you'll turn into an animal if you fail to fall in love with someone during your stay here is not something that should upset you or get you down.
I knew from early on, from talking to Yorgos via Skype, the first conversation we had was about an hour and 20 minutes, I think. And I was on my couch in Los Angeles and he was in London, and we were on Skype, and we didn't talk for much of that hour and 20 minutes, to be honest with you. We maybe spoke for about 10 and then stared into space for a lot of it, and that was interesting in itself. And I kind of knew that it was going to be very particular. I mean, I've never had less of an idea of a character's backstory than I do on this film, and that's not a complaint. And it was pretty clear from early on that he doesn't really have much of an interest in backstory. It's quite contrary because it's a very clinical script and it's a very unemotional script, and yet I found it incredibly moving as well at the same time. The sense of loneliness and isolation that was inherent in the script, that all the characters were living under and within, and yet there was no awareness of that loneliness or no talking about it. It wasn't given voice, it was just there, it was lingering in the ether of the story and around each character, but nobody was ever referring to it, thereby it's not distilled. The pressure isn't released from it, it's just a constant state of being. So as an audience member, as a reader of the script, I found it very, very moving.
Yorgos has a lot of fans in the acting community. An awful lot of actors have seen his work and are big fans of his work. And so when we went out with The Lobster, we just had a kind of tremendous reaction when we sort of went to cast it and agents started to look at it. It was clear to us that there were a lot of very interesting people who would like to be part of it, and they all descended in Ireland for 6 or 7 weeks, and we had a great time.
Near his table at breakfast sat a young woman with her head tilted back. Later, he would learn that she often got nosebleeds.
It's my first English language film, and I just feel very lucky that I had the opportunity to work with all these actors that actually come from all around the world.
It's supposed to represent the world of The Lobster, that it's not place specific. It's really about society. It's about, everybody's got their own accents. Everybody's natural to who they are as people.
Hello. Hello. I've decided to go for a walk outside with my new friend. Let me introduce you.
Casting is a very particular and difficult process. When we're writing the script, we don't even have very detailed descriptions of the characters in the script because, I am very open afterwards in the casting process to just find the people that feel right. And then when you find one, then you have more information about what the other person that you're looking for should feel or look like. So then it becomes this, huge puzzle of different kind of personalities and people. You're trying to create a whole world with all these different aspects.
My defining characteristic is that I have a very beautiful smile.
That's been wonderful, actually. I mean, we're in this beautiful place, as you can see behind me, in County Kerry in Ireland. The hotel where we're shooting in is like a luxury hotel, so there's worse locations, We're all dressed exactly the same. And we're all staying here in this hotel together, so I don't know, this is kind of great sort of weird summer camp for film actors.
For Yorgos, it would be one take that he'd be filming as a rehearsal, and sometimes that take would actually work. So it was sort of a rehearsal and then start shooting.
The most important thing when you're filming something is just to understand at some point that it feels right. It's not important how you've imagined it, what you thought it should be, or what you've discussed with the actors or the rest of the crew it should be. I'm ready to throw everything out of the window, when we actually start making the film practically.
Working with Yorgos it is different to any other director I've worked with before. He's incredibly calm and gentle and quiet. Sometimes he'll watch it and go, again, we'll do it again.
He doesn't really want us to know perfectly our lines, which is a problem for me because it's in English. and I have to work a lot on it because it's terrible for me to act in English.
He's not overly complimentary, but that's a good thing, you know? He's sort of like asks you to do something different if you'd like to see something different, and other than that, he just keeps things fairly calm and moving along.
And you know, he likes to work with people who aren't professional actors, and I think that's really telling. He sort of likes something about, in a way, their sort of carelessness, you know, they just sort of go in and do it. They don't bring any baggage of, this is the way acting should be. So he can create this very particular world.
3, woman walks alone.
There's reenactments. We're shown by like the people that own the hotel, we're shown situations of like life in a couple, life outside of a couple. And some of those bits are quite inappropriate, and mainly the inappropriateness of the script is what I really liked, because that's just always what I really love when I read a script. If there's something inappropriate or something that you're not meant to say or do, then I always want to do it. My agents are always just like petrified.
One night on the coach, he sat next to the woman who liked butter biscuits. He gazed out of the window, not looking at anything in particular, just trying to avoid talking to her.
Even just reading this script, to me it was a real page-turner, and I felt really uncomfortable reading it. I didn't know where it was going, I didn't know what was happening, but I felt it really sort of seeped under my skin and kind of disturbed me. And I quite like that.
What happened?
She jumped from the window of room 180. There's blood and biscuits everywhere.
I hope she dies right away.
With Yorgos, we worked in Dogtooth and then in Alps. When I read the script, I thought that comparing to Dogtooth and Alps, I think this script goes deeper in terms of how they conceive the world and the relationships. I think we are a match.
Yes, I think so too.
Working with Yorgos has been difficult and challenging, always, and really helpful for me, because he always puts me in a position where I have to go to more demanding level. So I really like it. I enjoy it.
Elizabeth, give the nice man a kiss. He's a friend of mine.
The last thing I want right now is a kiss from a silly little girl.
Colin Farrell is very sweet, and I like working with him. He's very supportive, and we had some scenes that were difficult for me, and he was there, and he was very helpful and very sweet, and really, really great.
I realized a few weeks ago, that I've never played anyone that has such a distinct lack of self-awareness as David, which is really lovely.
I killed your brother.
There's no self-evaluation, there's no internalized argument with the self. He's just existing, he's just going where life or the system or the rules or circumstance dictates he has to go.
He whined a little, a strange kind of bark. Something like this.
It remains a mystery how much of David's desire to find a match is just due as a result of his fear of being turned into an animal, or how much of it is just, you know, that existential human loneliness that we all feel in our lives at various stages.
These aren't tears, it's just water. I just washed my face.
He thought about kicking her in the stomach over and over again, and then stabbing her in the same spot in the stomach. But then he thought there wouldn't be much point because she was already unconscious and wouldn't feel any pain from the kicks or the knife. So he decided to turn her into an animal. That night he left the hotel, once and for all. He began to run without knowing where he was headed. But he was headed towards us.
This hotel
Could it almost be on an island? Could it almost be like an Alcatraz type place? It's almost like the escape from that place is quite hard, I would say. I love the fact that it's sort of almost like the urban versus the landscape. I think there's something really interesting about that, especially in terms of human nature and what's natural and unnatural.
You can stay with us for as long as you like. You can be a loner until the day you die. There is no time limit.
Thank you very much.
It's quite interesting. Colin is the only person who's in the whole film from beginning to end. Rachel shows up 3 weeks before the end of the shoot because we filmed chronologically. So it was quite unusual for her to come in. She hadn't met Colin. You know, she'd met Yorgos. She didn't know any of the other cast. Everybody had gotten into their rhythm in the hotel, and then we moved to the woods and Rachel arrived.
That was the first time I saw him. He was hiding behind a tree close to mine. He seemed quite presentable. The next day, in the city, he found out that I was short-sighted too.
Short-sighted woman who is obviously short-sighted. We're told very little about her actually in the script. I know that she likes Middle Eastern music. I killed a man to escape. I let him fuck me and then I killed him, apparently.
That night, in my sleep, I dreamt that we lived in a big house together in the city with a large, well-lit kitchen, and I was wearing dark blue trousers and a tight cream blouse, and he took my clothes off and fucked me up the arse.
It's been great working with Colin. We started to shoot a little bit in order of the script, so you know, with first scene we did was when our characters first meet, and Yorgos kind of ramped us up to some of the more like intimate stuff a little bit slowly, and he's a complete delight to work with Colin.
Everything about this process is unconventional. I mean, the coverage, you wouldn't even call it coverage, is unconventional. It's not like they do a wide and then a two-shot and then an over-the-shoulder and then a tight, and that all goes out the window.
There are no lights, which is great, so there's no kind of pulling down of walls. And
Take it.
The set is this hotel, the woods are the woods. If we need a light, we'll turn on a bedside light by the bed in the hotel room. So it's very, very high concept, very low tech, which is great for an actor because we're not waiting around for hours for the set to be lit, which is meaningless to people who don't act. They probably just think, so what? But it's just a very different way of working.
Yorgos' approach to filmmaking, he enjoys the organic nature of it and to be able to get caught up into something and then keep moving rather than stop, start, stop, start. So for him, it's about being able to move the camera, get into the next shot, keep the energy going, keep working with the actors. Thimios is really extraordinary at bouncing light and diffusing it and making sure it looks stunning.
In fact, Yorgos said to me that he told the producers he didn't want any lights. They didn't believe him, so there was a truck of lights there for a week. On the set, I think he's used lights once. Tonight, I think there are going to be some lights because it's a big external shot, but they're 5 weeks in and there's been 2 lights on the whole shoot. It's very unusual.
We wanted to keep a certain distance from the actors. It was a little bit like the point of view of the hotel or the forest that the film takes place. So we kept the camera either lower than the actor's eyes or higher than the actor's eyes, and we used quite a few long lenses and sometimes very wide angle lenses. We never went much in the middle ground.
Why did you have to blind me? You could have blinded him.
I have no idea what you're talking about. The drugs are messing with your head. If I were you, I would try and be a little braver about the whole thing.
Me, for example, have a lot of lines, and I think not to play the emotions. From this way of working and this way of talking comes like reality. And because it's very strange, it's another way of acting.
Are you enjoying the view?
How do you even act in something like that? It was so bizarre.
You look handsome today. Did you get your hair cut?
Thank you. No, I didn't get a haircut. I'm going to get my haircut today.
There's no human reference that I know of to go, oh, I remember when something like that happened to me before. I remember it. It's so out there.
Look what I brought you.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so hungry. I'll eat it right away.
It's a bigger flashlight.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's so big. I thought it was a rabbit.
I mean, the worst thing you could do with this script is have a bunch of actors come in and go, I don't think I'd say that, or what am I feeling when I do this? And it's so not about any of those conventional questions and processes that you go through as an actor. It's really just do as little as possible, because the words and the structure of the scenes and the interdynamics of the characters are so particular that they just need to be preserved.
What blood type are you?
B. Plastic cup.
That's right. Very good.
Colin's performance is just extraordinary because it's very internal.
Kiwi.
But it's also very human and very sensitive and very endearing. So you're really with him. You're really rooting for him to try and figure out a way through this world.
Are you sure you're prepared to do that?
Yes, of course I'm sure. I wouldn't propose it otherwise.
The film is really a film about love. There's angst and sadness and some violence, but I think it's going to be an incredibly visceral experience.
What excites me about Lobster is its provocativeness, its dangerousness, its comedy, its edge, its romance.
I don't think anyone would leave seeing this film feeling apathetic towards it, and that's cool. You know, I've done films where people go, yeah, well. But I don't think it's a film. You know, I think the people have very definite reactions to it, which I think is good.
We should speed up a little.
I can't go much faster. These trousers are too tight, I'm sorry.
It's exciting because it is completely fresh. It is not reinventing a genre. It's an original story with an original voice, told in an original way.
Elbows.
And hopefully people will connect with that emotion and that humor and the tenderness. He's a very deep individual, Yorgos, and he wants people to make up their own minds about how things evolve and situations and the ending. It's to provoke a response.
Can I have a knife and fork, please? Not a butter knife, a steak knife.
Certainly.
We have made certain decisions. It's a very particular and specific film, and hopefully it has its own voice. And it raises certain questions, but apart from that, then every person that watches it hopefully will engage and will start thinking about various things in his own way and terms. And that's what I hope.